Hello, my name is Elijah Thomas, and I'll be giving you an overview of the Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson was the third president of the United States. He was the most influential founding father and was the author of the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence came about between June 11th and June 28th, 1776. It was on July 4th, 1776, that the Declaration of Independence was approved by the Congress. The first paragraph of the Declaration of Independence talks about dissolving the political band that connects man together. These bands were between the state and the people. The laws of nature and of nature's God was an entitlement that made a separation between the two. Sir William Blackstone's commentaries came before the Declaration of Independence, but Thomas Jefferson used some of his opinions for the document. This is a quote from Sir William Blackstone on laws of nature and of nature's God. Man, considered as a creature, but must necessarily be subject to the laws of his Creator, for he is entirely a dependent being. And, consequently, as man depends absolutely upon his Maker for everything, it is necessary that he should in all points conform to his Maker's will. This will of his Maker is called the law of nature. These laws laid down by God are the eternal, immutable laws of good and evil. This law of nature, dictated by God himself, is of course superior in obligation to any other. It is binding over all the globe, in all countries, and at all times. No human laws are of any validity if contrary to this. The doctrines thus delivered we call the revealed or divine law, and they are to be found in the Holy Scriptures, and are found upon comparison to be really part of the original law of nature. Upon these two foundations, the law of nature and the law of revelation, depend all human laws. That is to say, no human laws should be suffered to contradict these. According to the 1828 Webster's Dictionary, self-evident means evident without proof or reasoning, that produces certainty or clear conviction upon a bare presentation to the mind. So when it says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, it means these truths are without proof or reasoning. Our Creator created all men equally, with certain unalienable rights. Amongst these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. John Locke, a 17th century English professor, wrote in his letter, a letter concerning toleration, civil interests I call life, liberty, and health, and indolences of body, and the possession of outward things. Also, in the Virginia Declaration of Rights, George Mason writes that all men are by nature equally free and independent, and we have certain inherent rights, of which, when they enter into a state of society, they cannot, by any compact, deprive or devise their posterity, namely, the enjoyment of life and liberty, which means of acquiring and possessing property, and pursuing and obtaining happiness and safety. Thomas Jefferson says, we hold these truths to be sacred and undeniable, that all men are created equal and independent, that from the equal creation they derive rights inherent and inalienable, among which are the preservation of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. The responsibility of a good government is to secure these rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, while receiving just powers from the consent of the governed. If any government becomes destructive or tyrannical, we, as the American people, have the right to change or put an end to it. Then we must establish a new government, laying it on a foundation of good principles, and organize it to affect the people's safety and happiness. If the people do not overthrow a tyrannical government, God will, like he did with Sodom and Gomorrah. The whole land will be burning waste of salt and sulfur, nothing planted, nothing sprouting, no vegetations growing on it. It will be like the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admad and Zeboim, which the Lord overthrew in fierce anger. Deuteronomy 29:23. The middle of the Declaration of Independence mentions prudence, which means caution in deliberating and consulting on the most suitable means to accomplish valuable purposes, and the exercise of sagacity in discerning and selecting them. Proverbs 16:20 and 21 says, he that handleth a matter wisely shall find good, and whoso trusteth in the Lord, happy is he. The wise in heart shall be called prudent, and the sweetness of his lips increaseth learning. This is how our founding fathers wanted to write the Declaration of Independence. They wanted to make sure they handled the matter wisely. Thomas Jefferson wanted prudence to dictate the establishment of governments. He did not want government to change for a light and fleeting thing. When someone who rules over us tyrannizes us, we have a right to throw off such a government and put righteous people in their place. We have to be careful, though, who we put in our governments, because we do not want to repeat our bad government. In the Declaration of Independence, it talks about how the colonies had patient sufferance when making these colonies. Patient sufferance means the bearing of pain, endurance. It also talks about how the colonists endured through hardships when making these colonies. In 2 Corinthians 1:6, it says, "If we are distressed, it is for your comfort and salvation. If we are comforted, it is for your comfort, which produces in you patient endurance of the same sufferings we suffer." The colonies had to go through some sufferings, but they were patient enough for it. At the signing of the Declaration of Independence, Benjamin Franklin said this: "We must all hang together, or assuredly we will all hang separately." This meant if we did not sign this document, the British will hang us all separately. But if we do sign this, we will pay the price with our own blood. The great King of Britain did not agree with the laws that were decent and necessary for the public good. He forbade his governors to pass laws of immediate importance, and if he did let them pass, he would neglect them. This king was a tyrant to his people. He would make them give him their lands. He would not pass laws for the people unless they would relinquish a right of representation in the legislature. Representation was a right that was alarming to tyrants. He would send soldiers to arrest the people and eat their food. He destroyed the towns, plundered the seas, and destroyed the lives of some of the people. In summary, this king was a dictator, and the British citizens needed to get rid of him. The Petition of Rights and the Bill of Rights and the Magna Carta all have similar rights as the Declaration of Independence. The Petition of Rights talks about the rights of the people. The Declaration of Independence tells the people that they have 3 rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Bill of Rights allowed Protestants to have arms for their defense suitable to their conditions, and as allowed by law. The Declaration of Independence reminds the people that they have unalienable rights. If someone comes in to hurt them, they have a right to protect themselves, even if it means death. The Magna Carta states that no man can take things from another man. The Declaration of Independence talks about how the King of Britain was a tyrant to his people. One of the things he did was to take other people's property by force. By doing this, he did not follow the law. Thus, all 4 of these governments all had something in common. Those who serve as a king, prince, president, or someone who was put in authority will be marked by their actions. If they act like a tyrant, then they are unfit to rule a free people. This was exactly what was going on in Britain. Even the founding fathers warned them about what was happening, but they did not listen, and a tyrant ruled them. In Proverbs 22:3 it says, "A prudent man foreseeth the evil, and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished." The founding fathers foresaw the destruction of Britain and tried to warn them, but they acted the fool and had to deal with the consequence. John Adams was one of the 56 signers of the Declaration. Had this to say about it: "The 2nd day of July, 1776, will be the most memorable epoch in the history of America. I am apt to believe that will be celebrated by succeeding generations as the great anniversary festival. It ought to be commemorated as the Day of Deliverance, by solemn acts of devotion to God Almighty. It ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, with shows, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations, from one end of this continent to the other, from this time forward forevermore." John Adams knew what the Declaration of Independence was not only an appeal for freedom, but the signing was a day of deliverance by the acts of God.